Hi there, I'm Juliana Carroll, and this is my sister and partner in Coffee and Tech, Lisa Jackson. Together, we are your hosts here at the Coffee Tech Talk Show, exploring anything and everything to do with work orchestration and automation. We're building a community of people who can share, learn, and grow together.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Coffee Tech Talk Show. And we have a very special guest today that I want to introduce to you. But first of all, as always, I'm here with my sister, Juliana Carroll, aka Jay. Say hello, Jay.
Hello.
Our special guest today is Mr. Christopher Kappes, aka Chris. And I want to introduce to you this very special person. I've known him for, oh gosh, almost 2 decades, Chris. I met this guy in Nashville in the very first company that I used to work for in the events and exhibits industry. He's been a mentor of mine and a friend of mine as well. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone about yourself?
Oh my. Well, I'm a bit of an exhibitionist. I'll start off like that because, I come from the exhibition field. So you have to be a bit of an exhibitionist to be able to play in that world. It's been 34 years for me, 35 years, who's counting, right, in the world of work. And so today, I certainly hope that I can share some thoughts. Some you can throw away, some you can keep if they make sense. I've been a CMO, chief sales officer, president, a lot of different things in the field of business. And so my kids tell me that I'm old, but with old comes some sage advice, and hope to share that with you today.
So we're just going to get right into it. We've got some questions lined up for you. And the very first question I got to ask you is, when it comes to work, how do you define work?
I think work is what you don't like doing, and so, I mean, in truth, if you really love what you're doing, it's not work. It's never work. It's what gets you up in the morning. God bless my parents and my wife's parents who are in their 90s, good farmers. And the farmer comment is you have to have a reason to get up in the morning, right? Uh-huh. So, in my mind, obviously the farming is a tough way to make a living, but never looked at it that way. It was a way to provide for his family. And so you would call it work, but it really wasn't. It was a way of life.
There's that whole ikigai concept where, what is it that you like doing? What is it that you're good at? What is it that what you like doing good at, benefits someone else? And then a key part for me anyway, is what will people pay you that you like doing and that will benefit other people?
Some people would call keeping a garden work, but it's really not. It's joy, and it's getting his hands dirty, and it's applying his craft, which is, growing something. So I guess you could say, how do you find work? Well, in my mind, maybe it could be defined as growing an idea or growing a product, growing a concept, right? But it's all about growth.
Okay. So internally, just like externally, when we have to sell a project, there's steps to that. How do you go about getting funded, in your company or in your experience?
Well, I think, listening on this are not just marketers, but all different types of business folks, right? So it's whether, how do you get funding for a new company? I just went through that with my previous company called ExhibitsHub. Obviously, you have to have a roadmap, be nimble in the path that you've set, but it also be, in my mind, built around a creative vision. I would always ask myself, would I personally invest in this? And if it doesn't pass that test, then why would I bother to move it up the chain, right? So it is looking at it, try to look at it always through the lens of who it is that you're trying to motivate to buy or engage. I can't say there's a secret sauce. I have to believe in it, and my ability to sell is nothing more than a transferal of my enthusiasm about the concept.
So what do you think people buy? And what do you think is the main ingredients that, that would convince someone to buy into a project or invest into a company?
Well, they buy ideas. We all buy ideas, and I mean, you look at Elon Musk and they buy disruption in the sense that who would have thought that right now you look at the electric car company, that category, and where that is today versus when he went into it, right? Have the idea that motivates people to want to invest in not only with hard cash, but emotional and physical energy, right? I mean, I look at him as just an incredible, you want to say the embodiment of someone who is able to envision and deliver ideas with promise. I think he's one of those guys,
I think that you have to resonate, right, with the people that you're trying to raise funds with. And it's not just money. And then I think people want someone that they trust to lead them, right? Mm-hmm. Or even if they want to watch them like stumble, then, they become your lessons learned, right? So I think, ideas and bravery has a lot to do with that.
Talking about disruption, I mean, somebody has to be that person, and Elon Musk is definitely an example of that. I mean, we've all started companies, I have 2 companies under my belt, and it's a leap of faith, and I think that people buy and invest based on your passion and based on your experience and based on your determination. They got to trust you. So it's about selling your product, your plan, and also your personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With the whole pandemic situation, a lot of companies have had to pivot, right? And are there certain things that you've been doing that have been successful, and will it be sustainable moving forward? What are some of the things that you've done and what you've seen around the industry?
As it relates to anything related to travel, meetings, hospitality, there seems to be not only acceptance because we have no other channel, but I see that things are evolving quickly to refine the virtual connections like we're having here.
Yeah.
And in our world, there are a number of major platform companies that provide the technology for exhibitors, right, to go on, and they mimic an expo hall. But the reality is that because of how quickly the pandemic hit, that a lot of the technology was kind of stagnant, so the immersion that brands want is hard to achieve. And in sitting in a lot of panels with brand side marketers, it's, they're being asked to spend equal dollars for what they typically have spent on floor space, only to take that same money and put it into a situation like we have here, and end up with so little from that investment, and I think that it's going to change, because as technology continues to, and I'm speaking to technologists, continues to evolve, the immersion, whether it's virtual reality or otherwise, without goggles, it's going to have to get to a place, and it's going to get to a place where, people are going to be more, are going to like the experience more,
Yeah.
And so you look at it, because everybody's working now on technology for this kind of presentation. That means that there's a lot of innovation put into the space that there wasn't before, and that's a healthy thing. But in terms of, would you ever buy a piece of capital equipment like a John Deere tractor or a bulldozer online? Absolutely not. You as someone that drives one, not really, but as someone that buys one, you're going to want to go out and test it. You're going to want to, kick the tires, and that experience you'll never get via what we're doing here today. You can put the goggles on and experience, but still, we're a ways away from that being a true replacement. But I look at it this way: live events are the face of the brand. Virtual is the tail of the brand. So you got to have that face-to-face to initiate, ignite the relationship or the discussion. But then the tail is for those people that can't come, or that you want to be able to reference, that's online. So you can still experience it, but it's on the back end, and you're able to engage in it, but online as opposed to live.
I agree. There's this term that we used to use way back when Facebook and all that stuff was just coming on. It's called virtual proximity, right? So I think that term will come around again. And I think it will come around because of necessity and not because it's nice to have. right? So we now need to be close to, you know, the people that we're selling to or buying from, or et cetera, you know, and it's going to have to be done virtually, but that trust and that, you know, relationship development and that get to know you, I think, you know, it can't replace face to face, but you know, we just have to become much more aware now of how, you know, networking is going to happen via, you know, internet, right?
Well, what, as a technologist, I mean, what are you seeing, you know, in terms of any new trends or technologies that are coming up that are like in development that we could see in the next 5 years? Do you have any window into that?
Well, coming from our world, we're getting, is, as everything does, it starts with the basic, right? You know, dollars used to be spent quite a bit on traveling and on conference room and on making sure that AV equipment in conference room is, you know, is working properly, because it was group to group, right? Now is individual bandwidth, individual equipment, you know, because now we have, instead of, you know, 20 people traveling to two different sites and have a, you know, meeting to meeting video and then have, you know, partly local, now is literally 40 individuals working together on a project, right? So we shifted focus on conference room equipment to ensuring that every individual has, you know, the right a good amount of bandwidth and the right equipment, and, you know, microphones and cameras are working and so on. So I think right now we're now thinking about how to make that experience better, right? So whiteboarding via you know, video conferencing like this and so on. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I was on a demo last week where, to the point you're making, this company has come up with now the ability, which no other platform seems to have, for each user to have control, not of just their background, but they're in the concert business, concert production, so on and so forth. And operating the control panel for the group, there was a DJ who basically who sort of helped everybody, you know, manage their own little environment, but it became a much individualized experience.
Right.
So if you didn't like the music on the background, you could take yourself and put yourself into a party scene. You could take yourself and put and see live people, right? So it's very much more immersive, and the ability to control it on a one-to-one basis as opposed to a group chat like this.
Yeah.
Where you can change the background, but so what? I mean, it's nice to be able to change the back. I love your background, right?
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able on the fly to go up and adjust it. And it was music, it was lighting, it was setting, it was, you know, a lot of different things that you don't currently have the ability to do.
But what if you want to watch somebody else as they're doing something and still keep an eye on the other person's expression, right?
Right.
I think that's what we miss the most, is the body cues, you know, because you know, when you're in a conference room and you're trying to make a decision and you're trying to figure out who agrees, who don't agree, who do you need to, you know, work on some more, you're looking for their body cues, right? And I think that's what's missing in this type of exchange.
The intimacy. Yeah. Even the virtual, some of the virtual environments that are out there that you go on that are, you know, with a headset or otherwise, and you develop your own character, it still just doesn't, you know, it's cool. It's, you know, but it doesn't bring that intimacy, you know.
So I think, you know, a lot of times innovation, you know, is triggered by necessity, right? So, you know, I think we will see more innovations that will capture people's interaction, you know, not necessarily, you know, how we express ourselves, but how we watch other people expressing themselves and so on, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. And what's going on right now is a necessity. And, you know, in our industry, Chris, you know, we're seeing more and more of hybrid events. So I'm just curious and excited to see what's going to come up, you know, to make that a better experience.
This situation has accelerated the evolution of the industry to virtualization of the physical space. Mm-hmm. And so you will have both that and the issue is where companies are in their belief and their business model in terms of where they invest as a percent of their budget. Is it more on live or is it more on virtual? If you're a mature business, it might be less on live, more on virtual, or it might be vice versa. I don't know. It depends on the business, right? But the fact is, we're going to end up being a healthier industry. The problem is going to be that most companies that are just builders of exhibits or environments, that they're limited in their ability to pivot and bring that digital equivalent into their business model.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's something that everybody is going to have to figure out, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
From a technology perspective, you can build anything in a digital world, but if the programmers have never experienced the physical,
That's a good point.
and rely on statistics and metrics and so on, you miss all the nuances, right? So I'm really a firm believer that in order for us to transform, you need both the old and the new to work together for a better future forward experience. You know what I mean?
I think that's a great point. And just to amplify that, we do a lot of business with associations, and they're used to having a playbook of how to produce a show.
Right.
And basically they would pull out last year's show, they'd mark up the floor space, they made a few changes here, and then they send it out. And now all of a sudden, guess what? There's nothing for them. They're reinventing their business model. 40 to 45% of their revenue has come from floor space, which they no longer have. So there's a real pinch point now with associations with being able to cover their overhead because they can't raise that revenue. And now they have to not only pivot and learn a new language, which is virtual, but now they have to be able to sell it. And how do you sell something that normally has been free, or it's been a subscription model? I mean, there's you know how it is. It's not the same business model.
Right. So, like, for instance, we go to, you guys are a provider of conference experiences, right? And we go there to get the experience. So I've been both a vendor at one of these places, and I've been, a customer attendees, right? So yes, the monitors with all the information is very catchy, and, the graphics and so on. But really, when I go there, it's because, okay, what's going to catch my eye, and who can I pull aside for a few minutes and ask a little bit more detailed questions to decide whether I want to follow up later or not, right? How do you do that in a virtual thing, right?
Exactly.
So a simple programmer, they wouldn't know that is the experience of value for going to conferences. But then if you bring somebody that's in that experience, I can say, hey, when you create something like that, can you push a button, create a button where, a viewer can push and request a meeting and then have a private virtual room? You know what I mean? That's going to be a little bit more like the experience of the conference, that I attend anyway, than just simply, what's the point of walking around in a digitized room? It's missing the people that is, with the knowledge, you know what I mean, of the product.
Well, and to that point, a lot of the platforms that are out there, they're exactly what you're describing, that they send you to an expo hall. There's a little postage size stamp where it says, put your logo here. Right. And there might be a little hot button there. You hit that, it opens up a little screen that says, oh, XYZ company does so. I mean, and I'm paying $18,000 for that. Right. Right. To your point, there's not, and that's what's happening in our ecosystem, is that people are used to looking at virtual through the lens of live. Right. You need the lens of live to really bring it in the world of virtual. Exactly what you're saying. And we've had situations where the client, association will say, yeah, we want to host a show. We want it to be 4 days. 4 days? What are you, nuts? I mean, think about it. 4 days, a live, when you have things to do. Right. I mean, you're lucky if you, I'm looking at the statistics, if you could get a person locked into some content for 20, 25 minutes, you're pretty darn good in the course of the day, right? Yeah. So it's how do we bring that compelling content into a smaller space and create an outcome that we can quantify, right?
Yeah. So let me add to that, right? In May, there's a certain conference in my current area that we all look forward to go to. Yes, we do look forward to the dinner afterwards, but we also look forward to, learning from other customers just like us, and then having exchanges with, with the subject matter expert, the people that gets hidden, but really have the true pearls of knowledge, right? So then what they decided to do was invite us into this 4-day digital experience. Guess what happened? I signed up for it. I don't think I made it more than literally 20 minutes of one, and I didn't make the rest of it, right? So, but I'm guessing the digital event coordinator / technologist didn't know the experience of why people go there. Now if they had said, here's the list of things, here's are the expert, click this button, you're in the queue to speak to that person one-on-one, guess what? Add it to my calendar. I'm definitely going there. And while I'm doing that, 30 minutes before, or, I'll be clicking around every other things, right? And 10 minutes later, I'll still be staring at it, thinking about it. And maybe I'll go to another one. I don't think we're there yet. And I don't think digital content providers / the digital version of conferences have thought it through that much yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I to your point, I think they go to school, to learn to be programmers, but there's the customer experience, the guest experience. Right. What does that look like? And then how do we build the technology to move that through its queue, right?
Right.
I'm not asked that. Fortunately, with live marketing, we started out live as storytellers. So it's taking storytelling as the core, bringing it into the digital space. It's not that big of a leap. But to your point, if you're used to sort of a canned environment, and you want the audience to go here, it's a linear thought process as opposed to something that's nonlinear. Right. And that's really what we're talking about here, is that it has to be nonlinear.
Yeah. And it takes an expert.
No doubt. Storyteller.
And an expert at providing, the old legacy conference style, working with, the expert of programming and digital experience, and marry that, right, to have a good experience future forward.
Well, there's a real gap there right now, and a real concern, because the money's running out from the government for a lot of businesses, right? And the association side in particular. And if you don't have that revenue coming in that's supporting 40 to 50% of your overall cost structure, how do you make that up? And you have overhead. You're trying to, the team you have is not the team you need. You know what I mean? Things have evolved. So we're in that real delicate point of, I think people, it's the new wave. It's the disruption that we've been talking about all along here. It's not just, disruption's creating more disruption in all walks of life.
Yeah, I agree.
As a society, we're evolving to a lot of new innovations, which is great, but it's extremely difficult, day to day to be able to manage that. People, resources, facilities, operations. In our industry, one of the biggest providers had 7,000 people on staff, is now down to less than 700 in a 4-month period. I mean, how crazy is that? I mean, you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, during the holidays. Guess what? Ain't that way now. It's a totally different world.
Yeah. I think everybody has to evolve, and the companies have to help, their people evolve. We have to rely on each other even more.
Good stuff. Two things I wanted to bring up is about the face-to-face experience. I think from this conversation, it's very obvious, and what people are also saying, the face-to-face is a very much needed part of this industry, of the way that we do business in general. And that's never going to go away. But in the meantime, you mentioned something about the bandwidth, right? It's individual bandwidth. You can watch some of the biggest network when they're doing the same thing we are, doing the virtual meetings, and today, actually, I was on a Zoom call, and one of the four speakers, his recording kept cutting off. They had to keep jumping to the next one, and he was with a big company, one of the big casinos here. And you would think that they had one of the best, internet capability or bandwidth, individual bandwidth. And I think for all the technology people that are listening, that is the one thing that I think, we all need to better the experience when we're having these types. So we have time for one more question.
Ooh.
Okay. Okay, Chris. If you were given $1 million today to improve the company, either marketing plan or business plan or a project, what would that be?
At this time in our lives, I think a lot of people realize they can do a lot with a little.
Yes.
And I think that if this has taught me anything, it's that I don't need a lot. I just need health, family, and love,
Yeah.
So $1 million to me is like, I don't know what I'd do with it. I mean, that's not the answer you want to hear necessarily. I mean, if I felt like I had enough, what does enough mean? Just taking that pause, I think it's just reminded me just how fortunate most of us are. If you're unemployed, you're still fortunate, in a lot of cases, it's not, I mean, the government stepped in and has really, I think put politics aside. A lot of that money has been dispensed, and it was helpful to a lot of companies, a lot of people. So, I use Warren Buffett's phrase. He says, you know what, don't bet against the U.S., and, there's nothing wrong with the economy. It's just the virus. And fundamentally, the businesses are performing as well as they can. And, look at the market. I'd probably give it away, to be honest with you. I might save a little bit of money for Starbucks. Since we're in the coffee business here, so
I got my coffee.
Get your coffee. Yeah.
No, I thought that was a great answer, and this is why we're still friends today, Chris.
Uh-oh. It may not be that way afterwards, right? Anyway, no.
Maybe not. You don't know, but no, that was a great answer, and I like that.
Last comment I'll make. My kids asked me a while back, Dad, what do you want your legacy to be? Mm-hmm. And that was like, I'm not that old. I'm old, I mean, it took me a while. It took me a weekend to figure that out, and I thought, well, it's got to fit on a gravestone, whatever it's going to say, and it's got to be somewhat meaningful and true. And it's got to have, the essence of my being, and there's only two words, and that was difference maker. And I think that if that is what I can be and do, I will have really delivered what the good Lord has put me on the earth to be and do. So that would be my parting message today.
Awesome.
Wonderful. That was awesome. Thank you so much. So how could people that are listening and watching reach you, Chris? Do you have an email you want to give or LinkedIn?
Sure. I mean, you could find me on LinkedIn. It's under, Christopher Kappes, and you can always send me an email at CKAPPES, CKappes at live marketing, all one word, livemarketing.com. So
sounds good.
Feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you for your time. We really enjoyed talking to you. We wish we could talk to you all day, but you're busy. We're all busy. But that was really good. Appreciate it. It was good seeing you as always.
Well, good luck with your program, and thanks for having me as a guest. And it, I like the fact that I only have to remember one letter for both of you, and that's L. So
J and Lee. And everyone else out there, thank you all for watching. Make sure if you have any questions to also email us at connect@coffeetechtalk.show. And you could also check out our new website that is now live, which is CoffeeTechTalk.com.
All right, rolling.
That's it. Anything else, Jay?
Thanks, guys.
See you next time. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Next time. See you, Chris.